Thank you for joining our Wednesday evening Bible study. Please stay tuned for some important announcements immediately following the service.
As you know, we're in a time of expansion. Last week was wonderful evidence of the fact that we've got to make some adjustments to facilitate the greatness that God has already given us in these young people. To see young parents who were here and taking pictures and posting them moved my heart beyond measure. And to see those young people that we are creating for them a place to grow was beyond measure. Because I'm committed to what I think God is going to do in the life of Westside Church, I made a commitment, and Ms. Zatch and I have committed. And someone spoke to me and said, well, Pastor, I can't give that much. And I replied to them, I don't need you to give what I'm giving. I need you to do your part. Because God holds each of us accountable for what he gives to us. The reality is, if we're not careful, we will compare ourselves right out of being blessed and used by God, because we are concerned about what God is going to do with someone else's gifts. God has blessed us. We're at a time now, a season in our life, where we don't need as much as we once did, where God has made us stewards over more. And because God has made us stewards over more, we want to be a blessing. I didn't announce what I'm giving so that I'll compare with anybody or make anybody. I announced because I can't lead you from behind. Is this mic on? Because you can't lead where you're not willing to go. Now, let me tell you, if in your mind you think our gift makes us a baller, let me help you. What I intend to give to the Imagine More campaign, everybody in here going to have to help me do it. Amen. Amen. I done called, I have a few habits that I love. I done call them in at the golf store and say, listen, until 2029, I'm just going to play putt-putt. I can't afford no club. Call them in at the shoe store and say, hey, keep you some red paint, because I got to wear my shoes now till they turn pink. Come. But the reality is that God has invited each of us to do what we can. And what's amazing about God is that somebody can come and they may give $300,000, $400,000. Somebody can say, Pastor, all I can give in 3 years is $300. And God will take the $300 and bless it as much as he will, the $300,000. Because here's what God does, is God recognizes and rewards how faithful we are over the stewards, faithful stewards we are over the gifts he gives to us. My sister Karen always says, whenever I say, we're going to buy this, she said, now, you can't speak for my coins. And I think that's what God is saying, that we just want you to do your part. Watch what happens when we discover how to do our part. In the book of Mark, the 12th chapter, there's an interesting story. I'm just excited about sharing from the book of Mark, 12th chapter. Verses 41 through 44. The story is recorded as Jesus sat over against the treasury and beheld how the people cast money into the treasury. And many that were rich cast in much. And there came a certain poor widow. She threw in 2 mites, which make a farthing, some will say a quadrant. And he called unto him his disciples and said to them, verily I say unto you that this poor widow had cast more in than all they which have cast into the treasury. For all they did cast in of their abundance, But she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living. The grass withers, the flowers thereof fadeth away, but the word of our God shall stand forever. Let me suggest that God rejoices and rewards when we sacrificially steward the gifts he's entrusted to us. I want to talk about just do your part. Just do your part. God will not call any of us before him and say, now, Delvin, what did Joe do with his information? The wonderful thing about God is that not only will he not ask us what someone else did, but he won't ask us to have a reference from them when he blesses us. I like this story. Jesus has been talking. And if you read this passage, Jesus has been talking about how certain people in that community would violently exploit the poor. He comes and he begins to talk about that. And Jesus moves from a conversation to a demonstration. He shows us how this very act has been personified. He's now in the temple. He makes his way past those marble walls into an area called the treasury, which was in the women's courts. And as he stands now beside these marble colonnades, he shares with the disciples this story. He shares with us three things I'd like for you to look at. I'll share them with you, and then I'll bid you good morning. Would you like to hear them? I'm glad that you would. The first thing I think that this text suggests to us is you and I, let's look at where Jesus sat. The reality is that each of us has to come into the reality of the everywhereness of God. That this word, God is omnipresent. Jesus goes and sits where he can deliberately look at what people are giving. Now, let me be honest with you. There are some people who say, whenever we talk about the church or Christianity, you just say give, give, give. And I think that that's kind of a fitting description of Christianity. Because anybody who is a real Christian knows that it's about us giving and giving and giving. And in this text, Jesus sits. Where does Jesus sit? He sits where he can see what's going on. And you and I have to understand this about Jesus, is that Jesus is able to sit in places where he can observe what's going on. It's in the text. I'm not making it up. What we've got to understand about God being everywhere is that because he is everywhere, we cannot hide from him. There is no place where we go that he does not see us, but he is not trying to catch us. He is there to keep us. A man breaks into a house and he hears these words, Jesus sees you. Jesus sees you. Jesus is watching you. Jesus is watching you. Nothing happens. He's paralyzed. He doesn't move. Finally, he goes over and turns on the light. And there's a parrot saying, Jesus is watching you. Jesus is watching you. He says, what is your name? Moses is my name. Moses is my name. Jesus is watching you. He said, now what kind of people would name a parrot Moses? The bird said the same kind that would name a Rottweiler Jesus. Jesus is watching you. Jesus. He sits and makes note. Can I tell you two things I want you to be? That Jesus is aware of what you give. And I'm not just talking about in church. I'm not here to intimidate you. I don't play those games. I'm not here to trick you. I think you are far too intelligent for that. But I do want you to know that Jesus watches what you give, not just in your substance or your treasure, but he knows how much you give of your service and of yourself. That because the eyes of the Lord are in every place, we do God a disservice by trying to trick him to impress other people. Preach, Delvin, that's and I am. That we want others to think this and that, when in the end, none of us will reward you. Jesus has placed himself in a position where he sees what you give. He knows not just about money, but he knows the time that other people don't keep up with. He knows about the times when you pull over to be kind to somebody else. He knows about the times you've stopped because you saw somebody in the hall with their head down. He knows about the stuff that you don't get credit for. Jesus not only knows, but he keeps a record. And that's why you've got to understand that when you give the best of your service, even when other folk don't understand, Jesus knows all about it. That Jesus is aware of what we give in service, in substance, and in self. Do you know what is more alarming than Jesus knowing what we gave? Is that Jesus knows what we have. Because we don't impress him by trying to give and to outgive someone else when the only person you're compared to is what you have. When I was reading this, and I'm looking here, Jesus tells this story that there's this lady, a poor lady, and I'll talk about her being poor. And he watched her come, and they're putting their money into these trays. It's an interesting thing that the offering, the treasury is in the court of the women. The offering, there are 13 different places to give, and each of them has above them what this offering is for. They are made like trumpets so that when money is thrown into them, they make this loud sound. He sees the big ballers, like you, John. He sees the John Barry ballers come by, and they throwing in money. And you know, the interesting thing is that if you really want Jesus to catch your attention, they would probably blam, 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 blam. They would make loud. And then he sees this lady, this poor lady, comes by, and she just has these two mites. They're called a quadrant, and she puts it in. And Jesus has this conversation about she has given more than all of them. God is far more concerned with what we keep from him than what we give to him. Because you can't impress God by giving your money, your service, even your time, because he gave it to you initially. But a lot of us want to treat God, and you won't appreciate this unless you have children, especially unless you have grandchildren. I have this thing. I love shrimp. And so if ever I eat shrimp fried rice, fried shrimp, grilled shrimp, any way that bubble gum can come up with shrimp, the last thing I'll do is I'll put a little bit over in the corner, because the last thing I want to taste is shrimp. God has blessed me with some wonderful grandchildren. And they will see that on your plate after they've eaten theirs. And they'll say, "Papa, can I have that shrimp?" And I'm like, the last one? Now, Brenda, no, that's mine. No, you can't. But me, I'm like, "Baby, you know you can have." And then we get in the truck, I'll be like, "Don't bring them to eat with us no more." But let me tell you what you'll do. Let me tell you what they do especially when they were little. You could buy them something. "Baby, can I have a piece of that?" And it was like that they were slicing off a leaf of the food you just bought them. "Papa, can I have a piece off your plate that the bill is on my tab?" How many of us do that with God? we ask, I mean, you know, Jesus was the only, not just the last, it was the only, and he gave us that. Today you'll wake up and ask him for something. You'll ask him for something, and he asks you for something, and you're like, whew, I'm going to run up here to church now. They go over 2 hours, and God is like, I gave you the whole week. And let me tell you something about God. Now, I almost want to shout right here that the reality with God is that we have this idea that God has to do something to affect our lives. That God has to give you cancer. God has to make you lose your job. No, baby. If God wants to mess up your life, he doesn't have to do something. He just needs to stop doing something. Because God was responsible this morning for you getting up because he did something. You made it to church safely because God let grace and mercy chase after you. You got food on your table because God did something. And so our text says that he is not just concerned with what we give him, but what he holds for ourselves. And he rebukes for us the claim that we can give too much or too little. Because there are some who think that there is some value too large to give. If you've been blessed with resources, don't let the enemy make you feel ashamed, because Jesus says something interesting. The reason he's sitting here is because Jesus knows already where their heart is by where they put their money. When he sees them, I can tell what you like by looking at your credit card receipts. Come on, talk to me now. You can look and tell by the ATM card who likes food, who likes clothes, who likes the movies, who likes to travel. And he says nothing is too big for you to give, but nothing is too small. Because in the master's hands, big gifts are needed and small gifts become significant. I drive a 2023 Dodge Ram truck, Hemi. I looked at the Blue Book value. It's about $65,000 for my car. If I would have to replace the engine in my car, the engine is about $13,000. Right. Transmission about $3,500. I'm right, and it can run. I ain't playing, y'all. If there are any officers here, I never go over the speed limit. But my wife and I had this thing, because Brenda always fusses at me, because I'm one of them kind of people who waits until the range says 0 before I go. Brenda doesn't like it to get under quarter tank, under half a tank. She goes and fills up. I'm like, baby, don't worry about this. So the other day, we're at the National Convention, you know, we're over there. I'm leaving home, the nice Mr. Ringer, ding, ding, ding. 50 miles. I'm just going over South Dallas so I can make it back. I get back in the car. I got 21 miles. I'm going to Papa Do's because my pastor's eating there and I want to go pay for their food. I jump in the car, y'all, just before 35 gets to the Trinity River, Mr. Ding Ding stops speaking to me. And this car just in the freeway. I pull over to the side. Y'all, I think I'm dressed cute, got a little piece of change in my pocket, I got some car, and a $65,000 car needs a $3.50 gallon of gas. Now, y'all, let me tell you what I didn't do. My wife was not about to tell me, see, I told you. So I called my friend, the Reverend Fielder, Denny Davis. They were out eating. I said, y'all come over here. Denny came, and he stopped, bought one of those things, those little things with gas cans, put 5 gallons in there. Y'all, and a $65,000 truck started running because of $20 worth of gas. Don't let the enemy make you think that what you give does not matter. My car needs a $13,000 engine. It needs a $3,500 transmission, but it also needs a $3.50 gallon of gas, because in the master's hand, what is small becomes significant. Don't let the devil make you think that what you give here doesn't matter. Don't let him make you compare with what other folks. All that big old fancy truck sat by the highway until somebody brought a gallon of gas. You may just be the gallon of gas that we need to get going. Now let's look at who Jesus saw. We talked about where he sat. Let's look at who he saw. He saw the prominent. And it's interesting that these people who come now before our Lord now, and he ceases to teach, he goes and he watches people give. And Jesus does not have an issue with you being blessed. Let's stop that foolishness now. Where did we get the idea that you were more holy because you're poor? Is this on? There are going to be some poor people in hell. As a matter of fact, some people have few resources because they've not trusted God. God has a place in the kingdom for people who are responsible with their gifts. And let me say this for the church. Y'all, we need to quit celebrating us being wasteful and irresponsible. And we do that by saying that we love to brag about what I don't have. I can't pay attention. And the enemy is coming in and he has tricked us into thinking that we ought not celebrate what God has done in our lives. I don't want our children to have to go to the park to see somebody selling dope. I don't want our children to have to look on Netflix and them to think that the only way God will bless you is if you're dirty or crooked. I need them to see some folk who worked hard, saved their money, tithed, and God opened up the windows of heaven. I need them to see some people who believe in God. Y'all know I ain't playing. You practice all week how you gonna look in your stuff, and then God blesses you to be able to get, and you walk out and you say, "Oh, this ain't nothing." We love to talk about it's nothing, and we love to amplify what we don't. Listen, no father wants a child that he always blesses to keep denying that they've been blessed. Y'all gonna make me preach hard today. Yeah, God needs for some of his children to look like you are walking in favor. Favor was not designed to be hidden. If it was, then Joseph would have had an undershirt of many colors. The fact that you ought to look like your father is rich in houses and land. And don't let the enemy make you feel ashamed because God has blessed you. You've been on the same job 30 years, working hard, saving your money, providing for your family. And the enemy says to you, "Oh, you just a show off." No, I'm a child of the King and I walk in favor. Anybody here know about favor? Y'all ain't playing with me. Jesus does not criticize here because the people are rich. If you go back some verses, his criticism is that they got rich exploiting the poor. And Jesus says, "I got enough for you that you don't have to cheat anybody to look like you're blessed." Yeah, he sits there and so he sees these people give. And what Jesus says is, what they don't understand is he saw what was in their hand, but he also saw what was in their hearts. How else would he know that they gave out of their abundance? And then he sees this lady who is poor. And he uses an interesting word to describe her in the Greek, this word patokos. It's where you are poor, but just before begging. This this lady is poor. Y'all, not okay. Red Fox used to say when we were little, we were poor. We were so poor we couldn't afford the extra O&R. She's here at church, and Jesus watches her. He knows about her. He says she is a widow. But watch what Jesus says. In the preceding verses, he's talked about those of you who exploit widows, and you get your money. I wanted to shout because Jesus sees someone who is challenged. By either practices that exploit or experiences that are painful. But he sees more. He sees somebody who has been challenged by experiences that are painful become a channel of eternal provision. Watch what Jesus says. He sees this lady takes these two and put them in, and she uses these two mites to be a blessing to the church. Yo, let me tell you something. If I start crying, you'll forgive me. When I look back over my life, I had more Big Mama them than Bill Gates to invest in my life. And I've seen God take people who were struggling, and they sent me a word of encouragement, $5 here and $1 there. I don't need everybody, but I wonder if you ever seen what Jesus saw that day, where God took just a handful of folk who were barely making it. And when they gave in sincerity, he blew over it. Somebody listening to me, you say, Pastor, I'm struggling. I ain't got a lot. You just give what you can. I've seen God take it. I've seen people in the community that I grew up with, you were almost embarrassed to take things from them. But God knew how to provide for them, and God knew how to use them to be a blessing to you. God knew how to let you go places they would never go. But the only reason you were there is because they invested in you. I don't need everybody, but I ought to have about 3.5 folk in each of these sections to say, what I drive, they never drove, but I wouldn't have been driving it if they had helped me stay in school. Where I live, they will never live there, but I'm here because when they didn't have money, they gave me encouragement that they sacrificed so that Yo, ain't nobody gonna help me but me today. Yeah. Is there anybody here who can look back? I can call their names. You've heard me tell about Miss Rosie Samuel, who took me down to the S&H green stamp place and redeemed her S&H stamps so I could have an attaché to look like the big preachers. I can tell you about my cousin AD. When my mama and daddy didn't have a car of their own, my daddy had a truck, but he had to go to work. But cousin AD said, come on, drive my car and you can go to convention. And now I sit as an advisor to the president. I can tell you about the people like old man Henry Banks who say, buddy, let me take that boy to the meeting. Can you look back in your life and see people who had been the victims of exploitation? Life had either been systematic or systemic in racism, kept them in low-paying jobs, but they took nickels and quarters. Don't think that because you sit in West Side now that the people who built West Side were all major ballers. Some of them had to invest when West Side was in a car wash. When West Side was at 802, they put something back, and God knew how to give it to them because he knew he could get it through them. Yes. Y'all, the point here is that Jesus says this lady takes these last 2 coins and invests them in the kingdom. He is concerned about both actions and amounts. He wants you to be fair with what you give, but he wants you to do the right thing and how you give it. Jesus saw their hands and their heart. I have a friend, and one of my friends, I was talking to them a couple of weeks ago, and they just celebrated an anniversary, a number of years. And my friend, well, he was my friend up until this point. My wife found out all the wonderful gifts that he gave his wife. And we're riding in the car, and Brenda says to me, "Oh, can you believe, kind of off the cuff, can you believe that and that and that?" And I said, "Yeah, I believe it. I believe he'd do a whole lot more because I know how he feels about her." When you really love, you don't have to beg, prod, or cajole. When you really love, you don't have to feel obligated. All you need is an opportunity. Jesus says to us that your love for me ought to be, all you need is an opportunity. You've been kind. Let me tell you what Jesus says, and I'm going to my seat. Jesus has the audacity to say, he doesn't say these rich people were bad, doesn't say they were cold. But what Jesus says about them is that they gave him a collection from their abundance. She gave him an offering out of her lack. A collection is what you gather up after you've used everything else. An offering is what you give first. And Jesus says, all she got is this, but the suggestion is that that's all she had. And let me tell you why I wanted to shout about this lady. And I know you won't see yourself in this, so you can say this for your cousin them. When this lady has these 2 coins that collectively make about 1/64 of a man's daily salary, 14 cents. She takes these 2 coins and put them in. Now, this is just us. We all family. If I got 14 cents and I'm at church, Jesus might get the dime. Or he might get the 4 pennies. Come on, talk to me now. Here she is. She gives her all. Jesus says she gave everything that she had. Jesus is far more concerned with what our gifts cost us than what it benefits him. And Jesus says that this lady has given more than them all. Y'all, my chest stuck out. Because I'm saying, I ain't got to run up and say, I'm going to give as much as so-and-so. All I got to do is say, I did my best. I did my part. The Reverend George Parks, Michelangelo and I were talking to Dr. Parks. He pastors the Metropolitan Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. Last week, he told the story of Otis Moss Jr. Otis Moss Jr., who was at the Olivet Church, Institutional Baptist Church in Cleveland, says that one day he was preaching at this country church. He says that while he was preaching at this country church, it started to get hot, and finally somebody went over and opened one of the windows. He said the breeze was welcome because it cooled the place, but as it came in, it blew all of his notes. And that as his notes are blowing, he says all he could say was, ain't God all right? Ain't the Lord all right? Ain't God all right? Ain't the Lord all right? So the people couldn't, they just knew that he couldn't find his way and they didn't know what to say. They were looking befuddled while he was up there. Ain't the Lord ain't God all right? Ain't the Lord all right? Ain't God all right? So finally he ended the torture for them all. Said, but while he was preaching, there was one lady who was just shouting. She was, oh, yes, sir. God be praised. Woo, Jesus. He said after church, he went to shake the people's hand. And you know that feeling you get when you felt you've not done something. Well, you're just shaking the people's hand. And he said, finally, he queried the lady and said, ma'am, why did you keep saying amen When it was obvious, I didn't know what to say. Old lady looked at him and said, "Baby, just because you couldn't do your part didn't mean I couldn't do my part." Westside, I've read my note, but can I ask you, ain't he all right? Ain't the Lord all right? Is there anybody who says, "I can't do your part, but I'm going to do my part"? If he doesn't give me a lot, what little I have, I'm going to do it for the kingdom. I'll tell you why I'm going to do my part. It's because he showed me how he did his part. One Friday, at a place called Calvary, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I didn't have enough on my account to pay for my own sins. So somebody loved me enough to pay a debt that he did not owe, because I had a debt I could not pay. Didn't he do his part? They led him up Calvary's mountain. They nailed him in his hands. They stretched him wide. They dropped him low. They hung him high. He died, but early Sunday morning, God raised him. I couldn't do his part, but I'm going to do my part. And all I'm asking you is that you do your part.
Westside, here are our announcements for the week. With appreciation, some lives are true reflections of God's love. Sending a prayer of thanks to God and a note of thanks to you. Totally appreciated the support and love during the time of the loss of my brother. Much love, Brother Christian Moore and family. The Epic Ministry invites all young adults to their monthly gathering on Tuesday, August 26th at 6:30 p.m. Please contact Brother Thomas or Sister Amy Key for additional information. The WBC Community Outreach Ministry, in conjunction with the Tarrant County Food Bank, will have the monthly food distribution on Saturday, August 23rd. Food distribution begins at 8:30 a.m. until all the food has been distributed. Volunteers are asked to arrive by 7 a.m. and remain until cleanup is completed. Praise Dance registration is now open for children grades 1 through 6 and youth grades 7 through 12. A parent meeting to learn more about the ministry will be held on August 23rd in the sanctuary. If interested, please email your contact info along with your child's name and grade level to danceministry@wbcchurch.org. Fall revival is approaching. Please mark your calendars for September 2nd through the 4th, with services starting at 7:30 p.m. Guests include Dr. James Lewis Boatner of Beth Eden Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Pastor Oscar Epps Sr. of Community Baptist Churches of DeSoto and Cedar Hill, and Pastor Denny D. Davis of St. John Baptist Church of Grand Prairie and South Lake. Save the date. Grambling and Prairie View bands will be worshiping with us on HBCU Sunday, September 28th. Save the date. Fun Day Sunday is November 2nd. WBC members, stay tuned for additional information. For additional information regarding any of these announcements and much more, please visit us at WBCCHURCH.org. Weekly announcements are also available on the Westside YouTube channel. Thank you and have a blessed